You guys sound awesome. Well, you sounded awesome. Right now, you're pretty quiet. You know, something that I want you to know every single day, it's a basic thing, but I want you to remember that because God is love, He does nothing outside of that characteristic. So even though our perception might be that it's something other than that, He will not act on our collective behalf or on your personal behalf outside of the characteristic of love. Now, sometimes it doesn't look like it is love. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's love. I asked myself a question. I shared this a little bit with Mill City last week, but I didn't go real deep into it. But I asked myself this question: what if I were a plow? Well, that's kind of a weird question. I ask myself lots of strange questions. When we get together with a weekly meeting with those that are on staff here at Inside Out, one of the things we either start the meeting with or we end it with is a deep thought. Right? And it's kind of funny because some of them are ridiculous, but nonetheless, trying to get our minds to constantly ask questions about things we have trouble explaining, understanding, or those things that are completely ironic, and some of which we'll maybe not get an explanation for, but nonetheless, to explore deeper things. So, what if I were a plow?
You were a big fat watering.
Okay, so there's a story. There's a story behind that. So I don't remember what grade Serena was in. Maybe first or second grade. Might have been kindergarten. She'd come home with the funniest things. And one of the things that we would have the most fun with is she had a very unique teacher. And she would come home with Miss A says, and Miss A had some really bizarre things that she would say, or at least the interpretation that Serena brought home from Miss A. And so there was always the Miss A said, and we were always ready to have lots of fun and laugh about this, right? Well, so one day she comes home and she says, "What if Dad was a big fat watering hose?" Like, I don't know, like what? What? Yeah, what if? Right. That's pretty descriptive. What if? If you guys would spend a little time in the inner sanctum of our family, there's some fascinating things. We should be writing these down, these really profound statements from the Cardwell family. Like Roman, when he was small, and he was trying to express how well he knew his family, and so he goes, "I know my family like I know my back." Oh! Deep thoughts. What if it's awesome. Man, I wish you guys could have been here at the Bible study last night. We laughed and laughed and laughed about things having to do with Christmas. Not disrespectfully, but because of the human attributes. As we begin going through the Gospels, our first week was last night at 7 p.m., and I can see it's going to be a hoot. Lots of fun. It did, yeah. But let's not rehash that tonight or today. It's not tonight yet. So back to the plow. So I get excited about weird things. And so I got the idea that I needed a plow, and because I'm going to, get rid of the grass that's covering the compacted ground from the horses and the cows running on the property, and So I start looking for a plow, and Simona holds her breath because plows can be expensive. I found a plow that was inexpensive. And it came from a farm where they had passed it down from at least 3 generations, and they used it. It was a 2-point plow, and they used it to plow 100 acres every year. And it was a century-plus farm, so they'd been doing this for a long time, and they'd never replaced the blades. So this plow had done some work, and I was excited for it. It was really inexpensive. It was maybe the 10th of a price of a newer plow. The price was excellent, and so I call the guy and I go, I'm going to come get the plow. He goes, well, if you don't come get it within these hours, there's a guy that wants to buy it for yard art. So he wants this tool to go sit there to express something in his yard. Right? You've seen this? But he wasn't too sure about it because it didn't have the additional disc guide on the side. And so he wasn't sure that that was the one he wanted to display in his yard for that purpose. I'm not sure that passerbys would be going, oh man, that doesn't have the right side disc guide on it. I am not going to look at this man's yard again. I am so angry that this man did not have a plow that was aesthetically correct according to its original features. Milton, you wouldn't drive by there and look at it again if it was...
Wow, I wonder if I could get him a disc.
So I drive up and I see the plow as soon... I'm looking for this thing. I'm probably all smiles on my way there. And I had forgotten that my daughter was coming over to our house, but God worked that out because I arrived home and I was surprised to see her, and I go, oh, right. She was coming over. Serious. I had plows on my mind. And so I pull up to this old farm, and there it is. It's awesome. It's rusty from top to bottom, every part of it. It's been sitting out in the rain since last year when they plowed with it, in the same spot where they left it. Just rusty as all get out. I didn't think too much about rusty or not, it'll dig through the ground. Not worried about that. So I get it home. My daughter comes up the driveway as I'm unloading it. And I go, oh yeah, right. I forgot about that. Thank you, Lord, for directing my path and my schedule, because I will mess it all up if he does not. So excited to put that on the back of my 3-point hitch on the back of the tractor. And it had the right hitch pins for it too. I didn't even have to change those out. Fantastic. I start making some trips around the field at 1.7 miles per hour, and it's about a mile around. So you do the math on, am I going to get anywhere when I'm plowing 48 inches of ground at a time? First lap, second lap, third lap. Then I had appointments, so I had to come in. And I go back to check out the plow and see how it's doing. Because I have boulders and stuff, and so every once in a while you'll feel a big bump and a big old boulder will come up. And you're like, man, I hope I didn't just bust it in half. But no, it was doing great. And as I parked the tractor, something incredible was revealed to me. That from the top of the dirt line on my plow, the part that was digging down into the dirt, that was being dragged through the dirt, was shiny, like it had been polished and had come right from the implement store. There was no rust on it. It's showing like you had taken a buffer to it. It was awesome. And so that plow, had it been yard art, It would have just sat there and rusted and rusted and rusted and rusted and not accomplished its purpose. It would have just sat there with people going, oh my word, there's supposed to be a disc guide on the right side. What a failed plow. And by the way, all it does is it just sits there in the yard anyway. It's probably worthless because it's rusty. And I started thinking about how much I like being pulled through the dirt. How do you guys like that? Do you enjoy it? How about when you hit those boulders? Woo! Yes! Awesome. Or maybe you get a chip on the bottom, right? Being pulled through dirt is what plows were made for. God made us for a purpose. It's a multifaceted purpose. Part of it is what I walked into today, where I heard so many happy voices, laughing, conversation, people enjoying each other's company, having coffee and some food together. But what kind of dirt have you been pulled through? What kind of dirt will you be pulled through? And would you rather be yard art? Challenges are not good or bad, they're what we decide they are to us. They're not a problem. We think of them as problems often. If I were a plow, I would ask not to be pulled through the dirt. Likely. There's some days when I'd be all in for the adventure and go, man, there might be worms and rats and stuff down there. I might see some cool stuff. Maybe there's even some buried treasure and some gold. I mean, we live up in the old Malala Indian country, and so maybe there's some artifacts or whatever that I might get to see. How fun would that be? Till the government found out that they were there, and then they would take your farm, but let's not talk about that. So, sometimes we want our itching ears not to itch anymore. Sometimes we have a hard time because when we packed our suitcase and we went away for the week or weekend or whatever, we didn't pack our Q-tips. And the suds from the shower are sitting in there and you didn't get them all out and they're kind of popping and crackling and they're feeling weird. And when you're 50 or so, there's hairs that start growing in your ears that just have no business in there.
More information.
Yeah. Come on, you start getting bushy inner ears. I don't even understand what that's about. And so when the wind hits those, they go, and they're like, oh! Serious, I'm telling you, it's just how it is. Man, if I only had a Q-tip to just go at it. Or maybe just some words. Well, words are going to make it worse because they cause a vibration and they make all those little hairs go, and then it's even worse. 2 Timothy. Those of you that have your Bibles with me, with you, with me. It's going to be a long day, guys. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Says there's going to be a time coming when we're going to be upset if we don't have Q-tips. We don't want to be dragged through the dirt. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 3, it says, "For a time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound and wholesome teaching. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. They reject the truth and chase after myths. I was blown away that I learned that in 2016 we adopted a new term as official in the dictionaries. Most of the dictionaries took it on. And of course, Wikipedia has it, so it's true. Right? It must be. So, but the Oxford Dictionary adopted it first. And the term is this, and I've been trying to figure out what it means, even though they have a definition, but it's a strange thing. And it says that we now live in a post-truth era. That we live now, today, as a society, they're calling this the post-truth era. It means the truth is over. What? What? Excuse me? How can that be? And then I read this text and we can look at a plow and say that it's not a plow, that it's something else. Or if I am a plow, I've decided I'd rather be yard art or whatever. There's all kinds of different things that are going on where we're saying that's not really what the plow is for. That's not what this is for. I want to make it up for myself. And I get that. I'm a nonconformist by my nature, and so I understand all that. But what an amazing thing that we would enter into a point in time where we consider it the post-truth point in history of the planet. What a trip! But Paul says that there's going to be people that don't really want to know what's correct. They're going to instead want to know something that's made up. Go to Isaiah. All the way back there towards the middle of the Bible. Isaiah chapter 30. And we'll start in verse 8. This is a warning that Isaiah was given by God to Judah. And the place where the people of the truth were supposed to be. The place where the people that sought after God were supposed to be. The place where those that were the keepers of the temple were supposed to be. The temple services and so on. And so in verse 8 it says, "Now go and write these words, write them in a book. They will stand until the end of time as a witness." By the way, the Bible over and over and over tells us that time is temporary, that God doesn't live in time, and that time is a quarantine, and that time will end, and you and I and all of us will no longer be bound by time. Isn't that awesome? There's an end of time. Does time frustrate you? Sometimes. Like the amount of time it takes to take a rusty plow around one pass in a field. There's got to be a faster way. Yeah, a bigger tractor, bigger plow. But even that is just insignificant. They will stand until the end of time as a witness. Verse 9, that these people are stubborn rebels who refuse to pay attention to the Lord's instructions. That was verse 9, not 10. Verse 10 now, they tell the seers, stop seeing visions. They tell prophets, don't tell us what is right. Tell us nice things. Tell us lies. I'm hearing Fleetwood Mac, right? Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I can't sing, but anyway, that's my attempt at it. So, right? The songs are always coming into my head. It's a sickness. It's from the strawberry fields when I was picking them. Right? Everyone in their transistor radios and their little strawberry helic. Yeah, until it filled up with strawberries, and then they had to put it in the bush, and then they forgot where it was. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. If you didn't pick strawberries when you were a kid, you're missing out. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's good, Bill. Awesome. What do you think of this, though? That this is the message to Judah. Verse 11, forget all this gloom and get off your narrow path. Stop telling us about your Holy One of Israel. What? Huh? Don't. What? Don't tell us about the Holy One? And now is the post-truth era? Come on. Solomon said nothing is new under the sun. There's always been the element of the post-truth, right? Roman brought home, maybe Serena was with him too, a surprise.
Can you change your package?
And the surprise was, and I don't even remember which store he found this surprise in, but it was water that looked like iced coffee in a clear bottle. That's what? At Roth's IGA, in case you want to experience it. Yeah. They have not paid me for that endorsement. I pay them dearly often, so I can endorse them. And their price is high. So if you were to take your coffee and not add any cream or sugar and pour it into a clear container, that's what the water looked like. And yes, and light does not shine through it. Very, very, very blackish, dark water. So my mind told me that I should not drink it. Everything about me was like, that is something you don't put in your mouth. I don't know about you all, if that would have been the thing that you would have, but you almost started to imagine what it would taste like, what it might smell like, what it might do to you after you've ingested it. Right? And then imagine like we're having water issues in Salem. I hope I'm okay. I drank, some of the restaurants are serving it. So I drank some of the good algae water yesterday. So far, so good. Not recommending that any of you do it. I'm amazed that restaurants are serving it. That's fine. So it is what it is. I don't know. Some are. And I didn't think much about it. We'll see how tomorrow goes. But you look at this water and it's clear. And so if I have this water that Roman and Serena bring home versus this, it would make sense that this would be the choice water. But if I had a little bit of a cyanide in this, it would still be clear. It wouldn't necessarily change that much so that you wouldn't maybe be able to see that that's what was in the water. All the while, this other water that tells me I should not drink it is absolutely 100% pure. Well, that's the question. We don't really know. It claims on the package it has to do with the type of minerals, and as they mix together, they turn black. That's their story. And I think the FDA said it was okay to sell it. Now, if that means something to you, have fun with it, I guess. But so imagine if you're a prophet and the people are looking at this water, which happens to have cyanide in it. And there's this other water that has the minerals that makes it turn black. And the prophet comes along and he goes, yeah, guys, you know that clear water? That stuff, it's got just enough that as you keep drinking it, you're slowly killing yourself. This water that you can't see through, I know it looks strange. That's what you should be drinking. Do we trust the source of truth? Do we choose not to go down a path because it looks difficult? Do we always say this must be God's way because It's uncontended. Is God's way always uncontended? Or is it just God's way because it's God's way? I shared with you guys a few weeks ago, and I'll share it again for those of you that were not here. When I went to Rosario to speak each night, Rosario is a marine biology lab facility. It's a camp up near Oak Harbor, Washington. And I was supposed to go up there to be with the kids, and I was going to sometimes engage with them on their activities during the day, and I was the speaker at night. And I decided to go on the hiking trail as one of the activities because it seemed like it might be the easier for me to do, because I didn't bring the proper equipment to go on the rock climbing one. That seemed interesting to me, but I didn't do that one. And they had one where they played puzzles. They put puzzles together and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know. The facility was hot inside. You'd be in there with, I know it's cruel and unusual punishment. It's terrible. So I decided to go hiking. So the leader is the leader. I was not. I was along for the ride. And I saw some things that were maybe decisions I wouldn't have made. But I went along with it. There was a trail that went along the water, and there was an upper trail that went along the water. There was one that wasn't really a trail, it was just the rocky beach. And then there was one about 300 feet up above that was up on the ledge that you had a view out over the water. The decision by the leader was that we're going to take the rocky beach trail, and that there was a way to get up the bank steps that would take you up to the upper trail. I didn't realize the leader was afraid of heights. I didn't realize that from about halfway up this bank, and it was about like this. It was really steep. It's like steeper than the sand dunes at Pacific City, and it's sand with vegetation, and you're hanging on. Otherwise, you're not going up. And so you had to hang on to the vegetation to help pull yourself up. And it was quite a ways up there.
So there's not actual steps.
No steps. Because we didn't go far enough down the trail where the steps were, because we ran out of time, and so the decision was made, well, forget the steps, we're just climbing the bank. So I didn't realize that more than half of the kids that were on this hiking trail, they had chosen it because they thought it would be straightforward and easy, and instead they had anxiety. And so halfway up, the leader is like trying just to breathe enough to maintain, can't help the kids really that much because afraid of heights and anxiety, and something awesome happened about that level of the hill. Who would have thought that near the rainiest place in the Northwest, that cactuses would grow? These little cactuses that are about this high, but it's full ground cover. Full ground cover, and the spines on them were about 2 to 3 inches long, and they were the real deal. So we get up to that point, and I'm like, yeah, so you still want to keep going this way? Or, well, we're this far. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. So imagine those that already had anxiety, already had a struggle, maybe didn't even have much in the way of experience with that kind of a physical endeavor. Saying, okay, let's just keep on proceeding. And a cry went out to Moses. Why have you let us out here to die? It was something else. I wasn't too sure, and I wasn't the leader, so then I just decided, well, I can't lead because I'm not going to supersede that, but I became an encourager. And so I wanted to say, isn't this fun? Because I was actually enjoying it. Strangely enough, I'm one of those. But so As I encouraged a few, then they started encouraging the other students. And the students were encouraging the leader. And they got up about 3/4 of the way to the top. And there was an amazing part of the journey at this point in time. Because then it went truly vertical. And that last little section was covered with holly bushes. Now everybody's already bleeding. I mean, 100% of us are bleeding. One of the students pulled 34 of these spines out of him. This was a great idea, wasn't it? Man, hiking is the easy road. It's so much easier. So I decided that I would help them by making a stirrup for them to stand on my hands and help lift them up over that last part onto the trail. That was a grand idea. I hadn't thought through the fact that all these spines were sticking in the bottoms of their shoes. My hands are fine, yeah, they're good. I do farm stuff and work on things, and so they're pretty tough, but they were bleeding too. Don't feel bad for me. That's not the point. But the first person stepped on it, and I felt those go in, and I was like, oh my word. This is not the enjoyable thing that I was having fun earlier with. But I wasn't going to say anything because they were terrified and crying. I mean, I'm serious, and a cry went out to Moses. It was the real deal. It's You want to go with me, Milton? It's a fun hike. There was probably 20-something. Yeah.
She said, no, I'm not going to do it.
They with encouragement, they kept going. Yeah. So we get up to the trail. Everyone is dealing with their trauma, making sure they're okay, that they survived. And there's a sign up there on the trail that says, "Do not go over the bank. There are sharp objects, and you will be injured." Of course. But it didn't have a sign down at the bottom. You know what was awesome about that day is that night we were doing Agape Feast where we talked about the story of Christ and his suffering and the thorns that went into him. I wonder if they got polished. I wonder if they had a different perspective. Being refined sucks. I mean, imagine if I were a plow. I have no say in the matter here. I get hooked up to this 3-point hitch. I'm smelling diesel fumes because they're all coming back at me, right? And I don't even get to choose the route. And I'm just drug around and around and around and around and around. And I have no idea that I'm becoming shiny. I don't have a clue. Don't you think we're all becoming shiny? Words are Q-tips. Forget about those little hairs going in your ear, making it all itch and stuff, right? Sounds more like a turkey probably, but it's coming from one, so it's all right. So, Malachi. Some of you already know where I'm going. Malachi 3. Talks about coming into the presence of God. And verse 2 it says, "But who will be able to endure it when he comes? Who will be able to stand and face him when he appears? For he will be like a blazing fire that refines metal, or like a strong soap that bleaches clothes. He will sit like a refiner of silver, burning away the dross. He will purify the Levites, refining them like gold and silver, so they may once again offer acceptable sacrifices to the Lord." Does refining suck? Yes, it does. But there's an end product that comes from it. And, you know, how many of you are like me and you would prefer comfort? Would you prefer it? Will you choose, when you're sitting at an outdoor table, will you choose the one where the sun is shining in your eyes? Sunglasses? Yeah. Or how about the one that's outside of the umbrella and it rains like today and you know that you're going to have soggy pants when you sit in it? Like, I mean, really, those are just simple things. Usually we just would not choose those. For natural reasons, it makes sense. Who wants to go, I mean, once your pants are wet, how long does it take for them to dry? Years. Yeah, years. Well, I suppose in some climates. Yeah. I want to end today with a promise. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Brian, are you going to help us sing at the end? Why don't you come up, my brother? That will ensure that I stop.
It's up to you, Brian.
Yeah. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. There's already some refinement. There's already a light shining. There's already something awesome. I saw it shining out of you when I walked up today. So many people smiling and happy. Glad you're back, Debbie. We've missed you. Yeah. We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars. Oh, sorry, verse 7. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. See, I need your help. This is a team effort, this speaking thing. It's not a, go it alone thing. So, we're like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. It's from the tractor. The plow doesn't have its own engine. It's pulled by the tractor. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. How do you like that? As we're being refined, let's encourage one another. And let's not focus so much on the rust. But there's some shiny spots appearing, right? God is faithful. Let's sing.